Okay. Welcome everybody to our monthly meeting, Board of Directors meeting for Silicon Valley Clean Energy. Thank you to everybody who's here in person and remotely. And if I stall, we'll have a full complement up here. But anyway, let me go ahead and call the order, and then let's do a roll call.
Perfect.
Thank you. I will begin to my left here with alternate Director Carruthers,
Present.
Director Scozola,
Here.
Mohan,
Here.
Chua,
Here.
Abe Koga,
Here.
Chair Tyson,
Here.
Vice Chair Walia,
Here.
Director Lee,
Present.
Director Meadows,
Present.
alternate Director Srinivasan. Thank you. Joining us virtually, Director Hilton,
Here.
Director Rennie.
Here.
Thank you. And I will note that Director Makachuk is currently absent, but we do have a quorum of our board.
Very good. Thank you. Let's move on to the next item, which is public comments on items not on the agenda. So that is opportunity for public to comment on items not on the agenda. And you see some restrictions to that. Do we have any people, any public in the house that wish to speak? Seeing none, do we have any online? We do not. In that case, we'll move straight on to the consent calendar, and you have a number of items in front of you. And let me see, do we do it in which order do we do it now? Do we do the public comment first, or do we let's do it that way. Public comment on items on the consent. I do not see any in the room. And
None
not in
online.
the room. And so then, do we have any comments from the directors? In that case, then may I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I don't see any. And so let's have a roll call vote.
Thank you. Chair Tyson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Walia,
Aye.
Director Scozola,
Aye.
Mohan,
Aye.
Meadows,
Aye.
Chua,
Aye.
Carruthers,
Aye.
Abe Koga,
Aye.
Srinivasan, Lee,
Aye.
Hilton,
Aye.
Rennie.
Aye.
Thank you. And that motion carries with Director Makachuk absent.
Great. Thank you, everybody. We'll move straight on to the regular calendar, and we'll begin with item number 2, the CEO report.
Chair Tyson. Yep. How about now? Okay, it's not turned off. Let's steal yours. How about this? No?
Oh, we've lost our screen. We've all lost it.
Oh, you all gone?
We all lost
Oh,
it.
okay.
Okay.
White's very white.
Uh-oh.
I had this weird screen and I was trying to get to the regular screen and I said shut down and.
Oh.
Oh.
We're, okay, I think it's come back. It's come back.
Okay, she gets credit for she gets credit for honesty. And Director Lee, can I appoint you kind of, keep an eye on things to your left there? All right.
Okay, something is working.
All right, Director Rennie and Hilton, we had a minor technical glitch. And I think we're ready for the CEO report now.
Okay. Okay, I'm happy to make the CEO report. I just want to make a comment about innovation and continuous learning. That's what we just saw right now. It's experimentation. So I love it. Okay, so as far as my report, I wanted to talk about staff a little bit. We have our all hands retreat tomorrow and the day after. So we have quite a few staff who are here already. We'll all be meeting tomorrow at SVCE, Thursday. And then on Friday, we're going to be in Milpitas at the community center. That's where we're going to spend all day. Fantastic. Yeah, we're going to have a barbecue lunch there, so please join us. I also wanted to introduce a couple of new employees. One's not here today, Joey Landy, so I'll introduce him at the next meeting. Let me take, Andrea, is he on? No, he's not here today. But we do have in person, we have a very special employee. Her name's Colleen McCamey. And as she comes up to introduce herself, let me say that she started with us as a climate fellow. And then Pam hired her as a full-time employee in marketing communications, superstar there. And then she wanted to do something bigger and better. So she went to grad school, and Pam was really the architect of creating something for her. So she's back with us. Super happy to have Colleen back. So hand it to Colleen to reintroduce herself.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Board of Directors. I'm excited to be part of the SVCE team as an associate data scientist on the team working on programs. And I am a self-proclaimed energy nerd, really passionate about climate, creativity, and community. And I look forward to contributing to SVCE's mission and the decarbonization of our community through a data lens now with SVCE, and continuing to learn and grow with the team. Most recently, I completed a master's of environmental data science, where I dove into the best practices and applications of data science, and for my capstone, looked at the optimal solar to wind ratios for retrofitting existing wind sites in the US with solar. And overall, I'm really excited to support data-driven insights here at SVCE that encourage action and amplify equitable solutions. So thank you for the introduction today.
Welcome.
Thank you, Colleen. I'd also like to announce a few promotions that we have at SVCE. Benna Chang is now promoted to be the Director of Government and Legislative Affairs. She'll continue to report to me. We have Pamela Leonard, who is I think employee number 3 is now Deputy Director of Marketing and Communications. She will be continue to report to Adam, but also have a dotted line to me, especially as we are gearing up on our programs and there's a lot more marketing support that's needed. So her group is going to expand, and she's going to be leading in that area. So Pam will be Deputy Director. And Nick Zanato, who's also been with us for a long time, is our IT manager, amazing man of multiple hats. He basically does he helps on the onboarding, contract management, benefits administration, in addition to taking us to a different level on cybersecurity posture and helping us with threat mitigation. So he is now promoted to Senior Manager of IT and Administrative Services. So we're very happy to recognize the 3 of them. So with that, I'm going to change subjects. I wanted to invite up Justin Zagunis and Jess Cornejo. I want them to give you a short presentation. Justin's going to be talking about something on the consent calendar and the CEO report on how we are communicating about programs. So Justin, over to you.
Great, thanks, Grish. Good evening, directors. Good to see you all. Yeah, as Grish said, we just wanted to give a quick sort of reminder / update on where you can find information on our programs. So the reminder piece of that is that we do have a programs report in every month's CEO report. So that's something you can always go and find. It's got, a handful of infographics, some highlights. For example, we highlight the Future Fit Homes program, which is our rebate program for electrifying appliances. You can see that we've paid out in the past 6 to 9 months, $450,000 in rebates across about 160 projects. And then we have another 1.4 million currently reserved for about 350 projects. On top of that, it's got some breakdowns showing different technology applications we've received and when we've received them. So you can see kind of interesting splits between heat pump HVAC, heat pump water heaters, panel upgrades, pre-wiring. And you can also see that we've seen a really big increase over the past quarter, or the April to June quarter, largely driven by increased kind of marketing and just getting the word out. So it's all really exciting stuff, and I encourage you all to take a look at that. We also, the update part of this is we also in the consent calendar every quarter have a quarterly report, which is kind of a slightly bigger version of that in that it lists all of our active programs and provides kind of a text update on what happened last quarter and what's coming up next quarter, as well as a glossary defining, hey, here are what these programs are. So all resources that you can take a look at. I think it's really interesting, and we're working to kind of update and improve both of those to get yet more information kind of in the packet on a regular basis and in front of you. So keep an eye out for that. I also wanted to give a plug that on our website, we do have a really wonderful page now that has the list of all active programs. And so that's got, for residents can go look at it, businesses can go look at it, you can filter, it's got all kinds of great tools. So go there, take a look at it. You can click on links to the specific programs where they also explain in more detail what those programs are. So it's really great, a lot of information out there. Finally, if you are really interested in programs and you want to talk even more about them, please reach out to me. We would love to talk with you about it. If you want to talk about the portfolio, a specific program, an idea, that's what we're here for. We love talking about this stuff. So please feel free to reach out. With that, I'm going to pass it to Jess Cornejo, who's a senior program specialist on my team, and she's going to give an update on one more program. It's a very exciting update. Jess.
Hi, good evening, board. So nice to see you in person. As Justin mentioned, my name is Jess Cornejo, and I am the Senior Program Specialist at SVCE. Today, I will be briefly introducing our contractor training program. So to start, in spring 2020, the board approved COVID-19 response funding, which included $1.7 million dedicated to workforce relief efforts. Those efforts have transitioned into our contractor training program, which is titled Future Fit Fundamentals. So this course is an online program focused on all electric building practices and is designed to familiarize our local contractors with the latest in building systems, such as our favorite heat pump water heaters, as well as heat pump HVAC systems. The course aims to prepare contractors for the growing demand of these appliances, as well as prepare them for the transition to an all-electric future. While the program has had some challenges, the team has continuously pivoted and adapted to improve the program. And I'm very excited to tell you all that we recently just hit 100 contractor completions in our course. So today I am very excited to show you 2 testimonials from contractors who participated in our course. So with that, I will pass it to Andrea.
We are general contractor. We used to install a little bit of everything, but after I learned from the course and I have more knowledge, we try to make it all clean energy appliances. My name is Johnny Kim, and my business name is JK General Construction Incorporation. I learned from the program about heat pump water heater and heat pump AC, and I improved myself a lot. So I have recommended to some of my contractor friends, and they are very interested. Most of my customers, they like electric appliances better than gas appliances. Most of them tell me that they like to switch to clean energy just because of the environment. And I think this is very good for them because electric is clean and make them feel more comfortable.
So I have heard a lot of clients move in a direction to electrify, and clients are ecstatic of installing these systems because they're more comfortable in their home, and they're also doing their part in reducing the carbon footprint. My name is Roberto Moya. I'm a comfort advisor with Air Care Heating and Cooling. After taking the Future Fit fundamental course, I definitely learned a lot from where heat pumps came from, where they're going, and how to reduce the carbon footprint for the future. So yeah, we're installing this 80-gallon water heater. We're gonna pull the electrical from the main. You can see it on the pictures right there. So I definitely enjoyed the Future Fit course. It was easy to navigate and do it at my own leisure and really easy to understand. What is the website, dude? Through Silicon Valley Clean Energy. So that's part of the actual training right there. I recommended the Future Fit course to some of my coworkers. Actually, I've put it on the bulletin board because it helps drive out more business, know more ways to electrify, and to help reduce the carbon footprint. I've definitely seen a demand for electrifying and getting away from gas because of their search online or what they've heard from other people. And so they're very ecstatic and they're doing whatever it takes to electrify.
Thanks, Jess. Thank you, Justin. And we're planning to have a study session or workshop where we'll talk more about programs. So as Justin said, please do take advantage of his invite to, if you want to delve in deep, we'll do one-on-one sessions with you. And then of course, we'll do some broader updates with the board. And that's the end of my report, Chair Tyson.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you, Justin and Jess. And by the way, in May, I had a heat pump HVAC system installed at my house, and I found the rebate process to be a simple one with Silicon Valley Clean Energy. And the best part and the bottom line is the check did not bounce. So I'm good. I'm good. And so do we have any questions or comments from the board on the CEO report? Let's start with Director Scazola.
Yeah, well, I, for one, will definitely be reaching out about programs. I'm, a big fan of the programs, and I really want to go in depth. I'm glad that we're all going to hear about them at some point. I'm looking forward to that presentation. I'm loving the numbers steadily going up. I think the marketing is clearly working just based on the numbers I was seeing. And I'm hoping that there's going to be the snowball effect as more people learn about it, they tell their friends, and I just think we're rolling now, it really feels like that to me. And I love that you have a page dedicated to programs now. That's huge, I think. So thank you guys for thinking of that.
Thank you, Director. And let's go, I had Vice Chair Walia, and then we'll go Director Meadows.
Thank you. I am beyond thrilled at all the efforts that have been made along the programs field, not just to make the programs happen, because that has been happening for quite a while. And people before me on the board, staff members, everybody has been working on that. What I'm super thrilled about is the conversations we have with staff. You listen to us and you make things happen. So the website changes, putting everything out there in a comprehensive manner, it spreads the message. It helps us point our residents in that direction. And it really takes SVCE much further along in the mission because of the multiplier effect we can have from that. And it's beyond words for me. I'm super thank you, excited, looking forward to the workshop. And thank you all. Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Girish, Justin, and the whole team.
Director Meadows.
Yeah, thank you. This is exciting and interesting. I just wanted to suggest, and of course, any of us can share links with our staff, but I think that with the front desk people who see the contractors coming in and they're in there to work with permits, if you had a one-page handout, they're not just picking up our design guidelines, they're also picking up this training. That's where your audience is going to be. And so we could each circulate that to our front desk staff who will see these contractors. So I think that'd be great.
Nice idea. Director Abikoga.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Girish and staff. I'm really excited about especially the future fit fundamentals. I've been talking, for quite a while about the need for workforce development and when we talk about the just transition, just actually putting some effort into that, not just talk. So I really appreciate this program. I was just wondering, 100 folks is a lot. I think it's a really good number. What would you say is, and I appreciate Director Meadows' suggestion, but what would you say is has been the most effective way to get the word out to have gotten 100
Let me
folks?
ask Jess Cornejo to come up. She's managing the program.
Hi, great question. So the most effective outreach method so far has been direct postcards to the contractor's business. So all contractors, their information is public information available on the California State Licensing Board. So we essentially pulled contractor information from our service territory and have been essentially sending the program invitations to sign up for the course through that method.
Then is the 100 folks in our service area, or are there outside of?
So we open up the course to all contractors in Santa Clara County. And so contractors in San Jose, Santa Clara, and Palo Alto are eligible. As you understand, contractors, they work at a regional effort all across the Bay Area. So the program team, it was recommended, and we understand the importance of catering to contractors and ensuring that we offer this program across the county.
Great. Great. Thank you very much.
Director Chua?
Thank you, Chair. Do you have a stat on how many contractors per city? Do you have that?
Per city, I don't have the information handy, but we did pull it from the state licensing board on each of our service territory. The course is open to general contractors, plumbers, solar installers, as well as HVAC installers as well. And so there are 4 or 5 different types of contractors that we have been targeting just based on course eligibility. But we can certainly provide those information, especially for Milpitas.
Yeah, that would be good for me because we're going on the pipe. We have a seminar for contractors, specifically for contractors on how to do business in Milpitas, because we're trying to encourage them. And I think the Future Fit, we probably should collaborate and include that as well, because that's perfect. So you'll hear a lot more from me on this program. And thank you so much. This is amazing. We're all excited here. So thank you, Chair.
I don't see any. Oh, there we go. Director Mohan.
Hi, I wanted to echo all the nice things the other directors have said, but I wanted to sort of rain on the parade just a little bit. A few months ago, we had someone come and expressed, the gentleman expressed his frustrations with the process, that it wasn't as easy as he expected to get a heat pump installed in his home. So I'm assuming that some of those problems have been taken care of, and I wondered what actions you actually
There isn't any raining on the parade, so he's going to talk about it.
Oh, can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, great follow-up question. And essentially what we did was we did follow up with the gentleman who had raised the concerns and sort of the challenges that he had experienced, talked with him through it, and we made some adjustments to the program so that we do now allow retroactive applications up to, I think, 30 days after you complete the project, so that if there is a true emergency replacement happening, that person, they don't need to be thinking about the application process during just trying to get a water heater installed. And so we've made that change so that customers can do that. We still kept the pre-application, the reservation process as an option, because a lot of contractors and customers we've heard do like to be able to reserve the money ahead of time and make sure it'll be there. But we wanted to open up this other pathway. So we've made that, and we've reached back out to, I think there were 3 customers where they kind of fell into this time range potentially. And so we reached back out to them, including the gentleman that came in, and have moved forward their applications so that they will be receiving the rebates. Yeah, so we look for this feedback, we try to make changes, and then we try to, act on it. So that's what we did with this one.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Justin. And now I think that's all of the director's comments. And so, ladies, do we have any comments from the floor? From the public? Oh,
I should have said, I meant to say one other thing, which is,
go ahead.
And if you look at as I mentioned, the monthly board report, or in the CEO's report and that monthly programs update with the infographics, there is a lot of information on the total volume of applications. So you can see, we've had, I think it's about 500, I guess, projects that we've approved. And out of that, again, I think it was like 3 that fell into this category of someone who kind of found out about the rebates afterwards. And so we did go back after them, but it is a very small percentage in terms of the actual volume of projects that we're seeing. Thanks, sorry.
All right, thank you, Justin.
Oh. Chair, I have one question. This is like, if not to you, Justin, to Chair Tyson. Because we sit on the board, is there a legal issue of us getting a rebate?
I hope not, because I just announced.
I
that.
know, that's what,
Um,
that's
you
what
know,
because I was thinking about that. I said, oh, is there a legal issue?
A general practice would be something that's available broadly, is
Okay.
accessible to the people that are approving it. And somebody, if that's wrong, don't tell me.
Please tell me, because I think I brought this up with our counsel and he said, oh, I have to look into it. But I heard you got a rebate, so that's good for me.
Chair Tyson?
Yes, please.
We'll follow up on that. I
Okay.
think just from my experience, we don't think it's a problem. I'm pretty sure it's not an issue, but we'll follow up to make sure.
Okay, I don't want to get you into trouble.
Too late, too late.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, I
Thank
could be
you.
a poster boy for something, I guess. All right. Were there any comments from the public? I do not see any in public person, and then we don't have any. So thank you, CEO Girish, for that report. And we'll move on now to item number 3, which has to do with a couple of power agreements. And I believe our COO Padilla will be speaking.
Make sure this is on. Can
It's
you hear
good.
me?
Yeah.
All right. Good evening, directors and Chair Tyson. I have with me today Zach Lesky, who is our Senior Manager of Power Operations. And together we're going to present to you an opportunity to delegate authority to our CEO to execute 2 contracts needed mostly to meet some procurement requirements. Do I have the clicker? All right. So just to give you a very high level view of these contracts, there are 2 contracts. The first one is called Grace Orchard Solar 2, and this is a solar only resource needed to help meet our RPS requirements. The second one is called Yellow Pine Solar 3 Standalone Storage. We get no solar, we're just procuring the standalone storage, and this resource is needed for various purposes, including resource adequacy, midterm reliability procurement order requirements, and also just to add value to our portfolio. These resources can also help meet, in addition to our general requirements to meet our customer loads, specific requirements under our clean energy non-standard pricing program. So I'm just going to set the stage for what we're asking, but Zach is actually going to present because Zach, along with Bob Tank, who is a contractor of ours, did all the negotiations that led to us being able to bring these 2 resources to you. But here in a nutshell is what we request in the staff report, and we'll go over this again at the very end of the presentation. But once again, we're asking for you to delegate authority to the CEO to execute these 2 separate contracts as defined both with Grace Solar and Yellow Pine. And it's essentially for Grace Solar, 120 megawatt contract representing about 331 thousand megawatt hours per year of RPS, or what we call Portfolio Category Content 1, PCC 1 eligible resources. This is the prime RPS resource for a term of 15 years with the start date we believe to be around July 1st, 2027. Through June 30th, 2042, with the total dollar authority granted to the CEO not to exceed $286 million for that particular contract. The second contract, again, Yellow Pine Storage, is for 115 megawatts of clean capacity, but we can take up to 120 megawatts, so an additional 5 megawatts contingent on some efforts that the developer of this resource is undergoing right now for a 15-year term. with an expected delivery start date of August 1st, 2025, to go all the way through July 31st, 2040, for a dollar amount not to exceed $420 million. And just to kind of put those two contracts into perspective of what we've done so far, we've made significant progress toward meeting our long-term clean energy goals and now clean energy capacity goals as well. We've executed to date more than $2.2 billion, but we have $2.2 billion in active PPAs or power purchase agreements right now, consisting of a variety of different types of resources: solar, solar plus storage, wind, geothermal, standalone storage, long duration storage, and portfolio of resources geothermal. And so that's 17 PPAs with a total of over 1,000 megawatts of executed nameplate capacity. So to put that into perspective, we peak at about 1,000 megawatts a year. So that's a lot of clean capacity. When all these resources that we've executed so far come online, they'll represent about 58% of a long-term renewable portfolio standard for SVCE. So that's almost, that's quite a significant amount of renewable resources through long-term contracts. And we currently have 7 projects that are operating in what we call the California Independent System Operator, or the CalISO, or on the grid. And currently that represents about 33% of our annual needs for our customers. So these are resources that are very complicated to operate in the market, but we have a great staff operating these resources and a great staff to also negotiate and execute the contracts. So just a bit of background here. When we go out for these types of resources, they're generally under a request for proposal process. So we issue a solicitation with very clear stated goals and requirements. For this particular RFP that we issued back in November of 2022, we were seeking resources that could meet our RPS requirements, so our Renewable Portfolio Standard, our IRP requirements, which has specific greenhouse gas emission targets, including in our IRP that the board approved back in the fall of 2022, a target to achieve a pretty aggressive RPS of 75% by 2030. To meet midterm reliability procurement orders as directed by the state of California. These are orders to accelerate the development of clean energy in California. Part of it to meet some of the requirements that Diablo Canyon Power Plant produces in terms of clean capacity right now, but others is just to get us to the big goal of 100% clean by 2045. And we specifically sought resources that could provide resource adequacy counting capability for our portfolio. This is a compliance product that is required of all load serving entities like SVCE. And as far as technology, we sought all types of technologies, wind, solar, geo, but we were particularly interested in carbon-free resources paired with standalone storage, because those are resources that we know can help us get to our 24/7 goals in the future, should we develop them, and also fit very well with the midterm reliability procurement order. We specified a commercial online date as soon as 2024. We didn't see anything that could do that as far as a new resource. And because we have this requirement to execute long-term contracts under Senate Bill 350, we set a minimum term of 10 years. So we issued the RFP in November of 2022. We got, not our typical amount of responses, but we got some responses, and we evaluated them and scored and ranked them, and then ultimately shortlisted them. And these 2 resources are a result of that effort. And these are the only 2 resources that we're bringing to you as a result of the November 22 RFP. So at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Zach to describe a little more detail about the projects themselves, how they meet our different requirements and goals, and then ultimately our recommendation to you.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Okay, so starting with Grace Solar. So this is a project that is developed by NextEra Energy, Inc. 120 megawatt resource, over 331,000 megawatt hours a year of energy. It's located in Riverside County, 15-year contract that'll be coming online, expected in the middle of 2027. And this is a fixed price contract where we pay a certain price for all the energy produced by the resource, and there's no price escalators over time. And so it meets about 8 to 9% of our retail sales targets, and it's a clean resource, which helps our IRP targets getting to 75% by 2030, and also our 100% annual clean energy goals, and ultimately our long-term mandates by the CPUC to get to 100% by 2045. And being a 15-year contract, it counts for the long-term requirements for RPS. So this resource, in this chart here, we show it stacked on top of our current portfolio outlook over the next 10 years. So the shaded section is the contribution of GRACE in megawatt hours by year. And so you can see the other resources in our supply stack and where GRACE starts fitting in. You see in those dashed lines, there's an SB 100 target. So that's what the state is that's a state mandate for renewable portfolio standard. And then the kind of tighter dashed black line is our agency RPS target. And you can see that GRACE is helping us, get to our goals. And as we hit 2030 and jump up to 75%, this resource does a good job of stacking and getting us there. And so obviously more procurement to do, but this is takes a big chunk of that need. And in terms of compliance with long-term RPS mandates, so Senate Bill 350 requires that 65% of the RPS that we procure, it has to come from a long-term contract, which is something greater than 10 years. And so Grace Solar is really going to help us out in compliance periods 5 and 6. So the compliance periods, they're generally multi-year, 3 to 4 year timeframes where we have to have a certain amount of RPS delivered. And so if we look at this table, and if we focus down on row 5, you can see that's the RPS that we're projecting in each of these compliance periods. So currently in CP4, compliance period 4, we're showing 30.7% RPS. Then in compliance period 5 and 6, you see with Grace, we're getting up to 66%, over 66%. And that position relative to the state mandate, we are going to be significantly above the state targets, over 33% above in CP5, 29% in compliance period 6. So this resource, it has a lot of value when it comes to meeting these targets and ultimately our even higher agency targets. All right. Shifting now to the storage resource. So Yellow Pine 3 storage, also developed by NextEra. It's currently we're looking at 115 megawatts of 4-hour lithium-ion standalone storage. It could be adjusted up to 120 megawatts before the contract delivery term starts. And so we will be getting from it resource adequacy, midterm reliability, capacity, and the ability to shift energy and arbitrage. So to be able to charge in the middle of the day when there's excess energy and discharge in the evening peak when there's a greater need. This project is located in Nevada, Clark County, Nevada. It's actually a neighbor of Yellow Pine 1, which is a project that we signed and actually just started operation in late July. And so this project is in the pipeline to be built, be coming online in the middle of 2025. And it is also a fixed price structure. And this is a fixed capacity price. So with batteries, we're paying for the size of the battery times a fixed dollar amount per month. And then we get all the rights to use it. And so some of the things this does for us. So in terms of MTR, we have the CPUC is given us a procurement order, and this will help meet those needs between 85 to 88 megawatts, depending on how it's counted and when we apply it towards our obligations. And then resource adequacy, so ongoing through the delivery term, it provides resource adequacy, which is something that all load serving entities need to have. Energy arbitrage, as discussed, and the kind of bigger picture things is it is reducing our overall emissions in the evening peak hours as we get towards more of these 24/7 type goals and thinking. And it supports our decarbonization and electrification efforts as SVCE grows. So on this slide, so we're looking at energy and RA capacity. So Energy, we think of like the flow, so the megawatt hours that are produced by these resources. And capacity, we think of the nameplate, the installed, how big are these resources. So Grace and Yellow Pine, they contribute in different ways. Grace is going to provide us with additional energy that's going to flow. And so that's in that second column of the table, energy source as a percent of total retail sales. And the third, row down, solar. With Grace Solar, we're at projected in 2028 to be at 47.8% of our energy will be coming from solar. And Grace, it provides about 8 to 9%. So it's getting us from high 30s to the high 40s in terms of how much solar is part of our portfolio. Then when we look at Yellow Pine 3, it's providing us capacity. And you can see on the far right column, capacity is a source of our total RA requirements. So resource adequacy, we have certain requirements set by the CPUC, and we're able to fill it with different resources, but not all resources are treated equally. Some have greater contributions than others. So like solar, we see almost nearly 50% of our energy will be coming from solar, but RA, it's about 1%. It's a big kind of contrast. And so we look down at towards the bottom of the table, battery storage with Yellow Pine 3, we're showing we're going to be about 42% of our RA needs are going to be met by battery storage. Yellow Pine is going to add 10%. So we go from low 30s to low 40s in terms of that. And the big thing to take away here is that natural gas RA only line is what we're taking away from, is as we add these clean resources to our portfolio, we're reducing our dependence on these natural gas RA only contracts. All right, and so in summary, so Grace Solar contributes 8 to 9% of our RPS eligible energy on an annual basis, helps us meet all of our clean goals and our state mandates, reduces greenhouse gas emissions. And Yellow Pine 3, it provides us clean capacity, 88 megawatts going towards midterm reliability, 115 megawatts of resource adequacy that we'll see how that shaped out over the coming years. Energy arbitrage value, shifting energy on the grid, and ultimately reducing grid GHG emissions. So coming back to the request, as you see here, we're asking you to authorize the CEO to execute these 2 separate NextEra agreements for the procurement of renewable solar energy and standalone storage capacity in substantial form, and any necessary ancillary agreements and documents as follows. And that's Grace Orchard Solar 2 and Yellow Pine Solar 3. I think, yeah, that's all we have.
Thank you very much. That's certainly a very impressive pair of projects. And let's see if we have questions from the directors. I'll go ahead. I noticed that you said you had 2 projects after the RFP that you chose, and that's what you're presenting to us. So how close was number 3? How good were these compared to the next good ones?
That's a really good question, and I'd have to I'd have to come back to you because I'd have to go back. I'm not going to try to pretend to remember what number 3 looked like, but typically we we score them based on, we have an evaluation rubric, and cost and value definitely come in very high in that rubric. So I would imagine that we didn't pick it because at that point we didn't need it, because these 2 resources are quite big, but I can get back to you on that.
Oh, okay, thank you. That's fine. And by the way, I have 2 questions, and that was the easy one. These are both projects that we've negotiated ourselves with the suppliers. Is there any advantage or thought process about coordinating with other CCAs to do joint projects with other larger entities? Was there, or RFPs jointly? Was that part of this process? Could it have been?
Not for this particular RFP. So we've done a lot of joint procurement. We did, I think, 12 or 13 contracts through Central Coast Community Energy. So our first 3 big solicitations that we issued in 2017, 2018, and 2019 were done with 3CE or Central Coast. And we've had a really good set of resources, contracts, and a very effective process with them. And then we, collectively with some other CCAs formed this super JPA called California Community Power, CC Power. And we also executed 4 contracts through that process. And again, got some good resources, saved money and time by jointly doing this, and we'll operate those resources together as well. For this particular one, we were looking for specific stuff to meet an MTR compliance, as is every other CCA in California. And so in order, and we had gone out just before that, not too long before that, with the joint solicitation with Sonoma Clean Power, Peninsula Clean Energy, and Central Coast Community Energy, and we procured one resource out of that process. But we got to the point where we're like, okay, our need is very specific for this compliance requirement, and also to support this green, this custom product that we have, the green pricing product. And so we felt it just made much more sense from an administrative standpoint to go to do this one by ourselves. We're at that point where we're not building the portfolio anymore. We're just trying to fill the edges. And so when you go to do joint procurement with other entities, sometimes you have to share resources. We didn't want to share this time.
All right. Well, your answer, I found it to be very clear. Thank you. Do we have any other questions? I do not see any from the board. Oh, we do, Director Lee.
Thank you very much. Great presentation. So looking at these two, basically, they serve for different needs. One is to cover the storage issue, which would help us wean ourselves off of the storage from natural gas. So that's absolutely exciting. And then the other one is regarding the solar proportion that's pretty significant. So those seems to be the two main goals that will be accomplished by this. But in addition, obviously, this will also give us additional reliability moving forward. That's the part, because when you look at the red part on that lower chart, what Grace is supposed to add, I mean, even though we don't have the red, we will still meet the minimum standard. Of course, that's not what we try to do. And certainly that is something that would be helpful for us moving forward. One thing I do notice at first is, I guess right now we're relying a lot on hydro. And that hydro number is going to drop very significantly moving in the next 4 years. I think we had that discussion before, but refresh my memory, what that was, what we were giving up on that one in the future.
Sure.
In the future.
Maybe if we can put the slide back up, the one with the stacked chart, we can illustrate our need there. But yes, we have a 100% clean goal at SVCE. And we meet that through a combination of what we call renewable portfolio standard, or RPS resources, like the ones that we brought tonight. But we also can meet it with carbon-free resources that are non-RPS eligible, such as large hydro, and nuclear is a carbon-free resource. And so all that white space that you see above the shaded area or the colored area, that's all energy that we have not procured, that we need to procure to get to the 100% clean goal that we have, the top line. And so we have some midterm, short to midterm hydro contracts that we've signed with hydro providers in the Northwest. We have a really small contract, but it's a long-term contract that's coming up in 2025 with the Western Area Power Administration for a share of what they call Central Valley Project, which is some hydro resources through the Central Valley. But that's only going to provide a very small amount of what we need. We need to go out and find some other resources to get to 100%. And that's not an easy task right now. Everybody is, because of SB 100, everybody needs to get to 100% clean by 2045. Right. And so we have been relying in the last few years on allocations that we get through PG&E, because PG&E owns a large portfolio of hydro and nuclear, and they have been allocating that to load-serving entities. And they will, I believe, for the hydro, give us an allocation in 2024. We haven't confirmed that yet, but we understand that that's what they have indicated to the CPUC that they're going to do. We don't know what's going to happen to nuclear. And we are one of the CCAs that took the nuclear allocation. That's all kind of tied up in that whole legislative bill that came out with respect to extending nuclear for another few years. So we could meet 100% of our needs through RPS resources, whether they're long-term or short-term. If we don't find the carbon-free and we want to stick to our 100% goal, then we'll have to do it through short-term RPS resources, which quite frankly are very expensive right now. So that is something that we continue to look at And we continue to try to get resources under 2, 3, 5-year contracts. But every year we'll have to evaluate our ability to get to the 100% clean and balance it against our need to be affordable as well.
I see that the nuclear here is kind of sunset at 2024. The applicant is supposed to end on 2025, and the expected bill, if they were to pass, is supposed to extend it for at least 5 to 10 years. So if that were the case, would our blue, instead of going down, would just become the same amount all the way through to future years?
Yeah, that's what we're hoping will happen, but it's all up to, it's still being decided. You know, one path could be that they continue to give us the allocations, and then those of us who want it will continue to count it in our portfolio. Or another path is that they could take the value, the costs or the benefit of it and add it to what's called the power cost and difference adjuster. Historically, they have not done that because they find zero value in the adder for nuclear because everybody doesn't want it. So another way that they can do it is they can make it a state resource, socialize the capacity and the carbon-free benefits. And so we would all, every load serving entity in the state, not just the ones that are under PG&E's area, would get an allocation through some kind of mechanism where it would allocate it to us. And I think that the third alternative is likely going to be the case.
So we'll still have some blue, but it will be reduced and what it is right now.
Exactly.
Got it. And the last one, I think, is a bit of a dumb question, but you know, with our customers installing solar panels, from time to time, they have too much solar and they actually go back to the grid, right? Do we able to earn those solar coming back, or all those go straight to PG&E?
Well, it goes to the grid. So it goes, what essentially does is it reduces our load during certain hours of the day.
Correct.
So we have to buy less. But the actual attributes of it are owned by the customer who has the solar on the roof. We have no ability to count those attributes towards any of our requirements. I
mean, yeah, I understand that, but what I'm saying is when those comes back to grid, is those energy being generated, would that be something that we are going to, besides benefit from it, are we able to claim that those are the solar coming from? Because obviously it's coming from them, and it's going to be from solar, it's not from any other sources.
No, we don't get to count that.
We don't get to count those.
No.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Director. Go ahead, Director Scozola.
Yeah, so I was thinking maybe those of us on the legislative ad hoc committee, maybe we should start pressuring our Congress members, be like, hey, what about those alien technologies? You know, some of that good, clean energy. Can we get some more information about that? That might help us. I'm about 10% serious on that.
Okay, that's good to know. It's an idea. Yes, that's right. All ideas are welcome. I don't see any hands raised here, so I'm going to say thank you, directors. Do we have any comments from the public? I do not see any here. And do we have any online? I do not see any. So now I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to authorize the CEO to execute the 15-year power purchase agreement with Grace Orchard Solar and the 15-year energy storage service agreement with Yellow Pine Solar 3.
I second.
Thank you, directors. Let's go ahead with the vote.
Thank you. Chair Tyson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Walia,
Aye.
Director Scozola,
Aye.
Mohan, Meadows,
Aye.
Chua,
Aye.
Carruthers,
Aye.
Abekoga,
Aye.
Srinivasan, Lee,
Aye.
Hilton,
Aye.
Rennie.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries with Director Makachuk absent.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, staff.
Thank you. Good night.
Let's move on now to item number 4, provide feedback for the fiscal year 23-24 proposed operating budget. And I believe we've got our CFO, Mr. Amrit Singh, coming to the front.
Good evening, directors. I am going to go over the proposed budget. So this is a continuation of our discussion from the last board meeting. If you remember, at the last board meeting, we went through the framework for creating the budget. So using that framework, the assumptions that we shared with you that would be making, we created this proposed budget. We have also thoroughly reviewed this budget with the Finance and Admin Committee last week, and also a preliminary budget with the Executive Committee in the month late on June 23rd or thereabouts. Okay, so I'll go through the agenda. So the purpose today is to present the proposed budget so that the board, when we come back to the board in September, it's a very short meeting, and we take all the feedback that you give us today and we incorporate that into the budget. So when we come back to you in September, it's a short meeting and the board is ready to approve the budget, and we can start our fiscal year starting in October with an approved budget. So today I'll go over the proposed budget. I'll start with the key highlights of the budget. What are some of the key takeaways and main points on the budget? I'll review the proposed budget forecast, how the numbers look for the year. And then I'll go through some of the key components making up the forecast. I'll go through revenue projections. The biggest highlight of the budget is the uncertainty in forecasting revenues, and I'll go through that. We'll talk about the power supply cost, which is the biggest cost item in our budget. It's more than 90% of our budget. And then we'll talk about other operating expenses, namely the increase in staffing, the merit and COLA adjustment, and the annual transfer that we do to our programs budget. And then we'll review the reserve targets. If you remember, in June, we went through the stress test analysis, and we said that using that analysis, we were going to revisit our reserve targets in how much reserves we should be withholding to withstand model stressed events. Okay. So let me go through the timeline. We're in August 9. As I said, we are presenting the proposed budget. We'll incorporate any feedback the board gives us. We'll come back to you in September meeting for a final approval of the budget. And then as we do every year, we will basically revisit the budget in March when we do a mid-year adjustment, because we deal with very volatile commodity power supply, which affects not only our revenues, but the market prices of power, how it affects PCI, affects our revenues, and also power supply costs. We need to do adjustments in the year to true up and make future forecasts. So we'll do that again in March of next year as well. Okay. So the key highlights of the budget, we're looking at a potentially positive year, but results are very uncertain. But before I go into that, let me just tell you that the current fiscal year that the fiscal year ending in September, at mid-year, we had projected that we'd be contributing to reserves somewhere around close to $74 million. And our latest projections show that we will be contributing, we'll be meeting that target and most likely exceeding that. So this is going to be a record year for us. And actually from a financial position, because we haven't spent all our program dollars, from a financial perspective, not taking into account the actual spend of programs, we're going to end the year probably more than 100 million or so in contributions. That's what it looks like. So this is one of our record year. So keep that in mind as you look at the next year. So next year, as I said, the key thing when I show you the numbers in the next slide, you'll see the revenues have come down $84 million compared to the current fiscal year as we adjusted the budget in March. The main reason for the drop in revenues is basically the volatility in energy prices. If you remember, the key component, one of the key components affecting our revenues is PCIA. When prices come down, PCIA goes up, and that's what's been happening since March of this year. Energy prices have been coming down, and that leads us to projecting that PCIA next year is going to go down, and PG&E's rates are going to go down. And the way we set our revenues is we provide a rate at a discount to PG&E, taking into account the PCIA. So when PCIA goes up, PG&E's rates come down, what we can charge our customers is less, and that's what's happening. Just to show you the volatility in the energy market, Had we done this projection in March for next fiscal year, we would have forecasted revenues of more than 140 million than what we're showing right now. That just shows you a few months how volatile these energy prices are and how the numbers and projections can change. Now, one thing that's leading me to say that our projection is conservative in the way we've developed our budget this year. And the reason for that is that, as Monica mentioned, there's high RA and RPS prices right now. We have reflected those high RA and RPS prices in our power cost projections. But those same high RA and RPS prices should also bring down PCIA. We have not accounted the full impact of that in the PCIA. And the reason being is, unlike energy prices, which are traded on a forward transparent market, there's not a transparent price discovery mechanism for RA and RPS prices. In absence of that, what the CPUC does in projecting PCIA and setting PG&E's rates, they come up with a market price benchmark sometime in the fall of this year, will come out in fall of this year. And what they basically do is ask load serving entities, what have you transacted to your RA and RPS prices for delivery in 2024? And basically, based on that collection of data, they will publish an MPV. We have no way of projecting where parties have transacted for the RA and RPS prices. So we've used prices that were supplied to us by a reputable consultant, NewGen Consulting Services. As you remember the budget framework discussion, we went through how we use their model and how we calibrate it to the results we get from PG&E. So we've stayed with that model, and that model is very much in alignment with PG&E's projections that they put out for rate forecasts for 2024, rates for 2024, the forecast that came out in May. So that also shows that PG&E is using somewhat similar lower RA and RPS prices for market price benchmark, but we believe that the actual price of the market price benchmark the CPUC will publish is probably going to be higher than what we've used. So holding other things constant, assuming energy prices don't come down further, that variable alone should help increase our revenue projections. So there's some upside there, but again, it's very, very uncertain. So we want to be somewhat conservative in the way we're setting the budget, and I'll explain the implications of that and when I talk about additional spending. On our power supply costs, you'll notice that when I go through that, you'll see that it's relatively flat for last year. And the main reason for that is while lower energy prices does help, higher RA and RPS prices does not. And then we're also projecting load growth from current fiscal year, as we're projecting we will have made full recovery from COVID. So load is going up, so that's increasing costs. Energy prices is coming down, so that's bringing costs down. RA and RPS is bringing up. All in all, that leaves us at about the cost we're about the same level as we had for last fiscal year or the current fiscal year. So that leads us to a contribution to reserve of about 7.7 million. Now, customer discount. In setting the budget, we're proposing that continue with so remember the current fiscal year starts October and goes through September, end of September of 2024. So for the remainder of this year, the October to December, we're saying, let's keep our current customer discount of 4%. We don't want to introduce a rate change in the middle of the year. But for the rest of the fiscal year, for setting the budget, let's assume a 1% discount for all customers and an additional 1% transferred into dollar bill credits for our low-income customers. So this is an additional 1% on top of the 1% that all other customers would get. So this translates to about $3.14 million translated to bill credits for low-income customers, which is about $870 a month if we were to spread that out over 12 months. So in essence, they will be getting close to 12% discount. Okay, so again, this is primarily for setting the budget. And if you remember from the June discussion we had, we said, let's revisit the actual rate as we did last year when there's more certainty on PG&E's rate. So we propose that we will come back to the board around fall, around November, October, most likely November, December timeframe, we'll have more insights into what the PG&E's rates will be, what PCIA will be, and what CPUC is likely to adopt for those rates at their last meeting for the year in December. So based on that information, we're saying let's then make any additional adjustment for either customer spending or any additional spending we want to set aside for programs. Coming to bullet point number 3 on programs. Programs are very well funded right now. The need right now is for additional staffing to actually deploy the programs and the initiatives we have. So we don't need any additional funding. That's not going to slow the staff in its effort. But over the long time, over the coming years, we definitely will need more funding in our program. So that's something to keep in mind as we get good years, that we do want to set aside additional money for programs. The other big change we're asking for 9 full-time positions. Initially, we were thinking of we would need 12, but we went back and fine-tuned the numbers. We think 9 is what we need. And I'll go through this in detail when I go through the other slides. And the other cost increase is primarily related to employee compensation and cost of living adjustment, where cost of living adjustments were budgeted about 4.5% and a 3% merit. This is an average rate that's at the CEO's discretion on how it will be applied to each individual employee. That takes into account a number of factors, looking at where the pay is relative to market being one, along with performance, obviously. Okay, so those are the key takeaways. Now I'm just going to go through some high-level details in each of these elements. And then when we go to September, you'll have all this information to approve the budget. So we'll go to the next slide. So here's how the numbers look like. You'll see you see the projections at the bottom, contribution to reserve of 7.7 million. You can see the biggest change relative to the current fiscal year is the drop in revenue, and that's for the reasons I explained. You can see the power supply cost is close to what it is at the current fiscal year, and you see we're transferring about $11 million, which includes about 2.2 million in nuclear cost allocation savings that we're making from taking nuclear allocations from PG&E. We're directing the savings to our programs. So that's an additional 11 million that we'll be adding to our programs fund. Okay. And we'll go to the next. So here's basically a comparison of how our margins, or the rate we charge our customers, look relative to current rates. Currently, this is system average rates. Each customer's rates are different based on the tariff they're on, or rate schedule. So you can see there's a big drop of about 27% in our rate, and that's due to the PCIA going up and PG&E's rates coming down. In the middle, you can see the ERA forecast. Again, this is the forecast that PG&E put out in May. And that number you can see is very high. Had we had that, we would be looking at very, very high revenues. We'd have had a win-win scenario where our rates, our margin would be higher and the rates realized by our customers would have been lower because of the negative PCIA. But that's not the case anymore, because PG&E's data, they made the projections using prices as of March. And if you remember, I said the prices from March have come down significantly, and that leads us to our current projection. Okay. Power supply costs, I kind of covered this information. You can see each elements of the moving pieces here laid out. Some go up, some come down. Again, the energy prices, the drop in energy prices is bringing it down, but increase in RPS, RA is increasing and the growth in load also increases it. And adding the pluses and minuses, we end up too close to where we were for the current fiscal year. Go to the next slide. On the operating expenses, this is now laying down the breakdown in more detail. The personnel costs is going up by 4 million. Of that, the biggest increase is the 9 additional positions, and I'll go through that in detail in the next slide. And then basically accounting for a vacancy rate of 5%, relative to the current, when we adjusted the current fiscal year budget in March, we looked at actual vacancy. We obviously had a higher vacancy rate. So now basically annualizing the vacancy to expected 5% raises cost of by about 1.5 million relative to current budget. And then the COLA is increasing cost by 500,000 and merit by 300,000. And then we have other additional expenses in marketing and G&A and professional services of about $680,000. Now, all of these have the 5% contingency built into them. And one thing I'd like to mention is that at this point, we have not made any changes to our benefits package that we offer to staff. We're going to continue to look at adjustments to that benefits with particular emphasis on benefits that promote employee retention. So we may come back to the board with some suggestions in those or approvals for some benefits package improvements that we're thinking about right now. Okay, and at the bottom, as I mentioned, we're transferring in the programs dollars, and the 3.14 million for customer bill credit is we're representing in the budget item as a separate line item. Go to the next slide. So of the 9 additional staffing positions, now I'll say the 9 positions is the increase in headcount from what we had in the last fiscal year. So we are currently at 44. We have 7 vacancies, but last year we were authorized at 49. So you're probably asking where's the 2 additional coming from? So of the 9, 2 positions, one of them has actually already been filled, and that's Colleen, you met earlier. And that position was filled through the CEO Personnel Authority, which, as I listed on the slide there, gives CEO the authority to increase positions as long as it's within the approved budget and doesn't exceed the authorized number by 10%. And the other position increase from CEO Personnel Authority is a position for Senior Regulatory Analyst. We has expected to fill this position last year, but we have to swap this for another position. And we're filling these 2 vacancies, these 2 positions right now. Well, one already being filled with Colleen, and the Senior Regulatory Analyst currently being filled that we're recruiting actively. So that leaves us with the 7 additional that we're asking in this budget. And if you look at the bulk, the biggest increase is related to programs. We're asking for 3 marketing specialists. What we need in our programs, we have a lot of program and a lot of initiatives that Justin and Jessica went through some of them, but we need the staff to basically market these programs to our communities. So 3 of the increase is in the marketing area. 1 is in program design and implementation. And then we have 3 headcounts that we need in Monica's team. As I said, 1 is a Senior Regulatory Analyst position that we are actively recruiting under CEO Personnel Authority. 1 is a data engineer. So we have a lot of operational data as our PPAs have come online. We have a lot of operational data. We have a lot of data that we get through from the CAISO in the settlements area. And we're implementing, if you remember the business process optimization initiative, the BPO, we're implementing systems and processes that requires a lot of data integration. So we need 1 data engineer. And then we also asking for 1 management admin analyst for the group. This is a large group with a lot of coordination activities that are needed within the team and across the team. So we need one headcount for that. And then in the finance and admin area, we're asking for 1 senior financial analyst to basically support the organization with budgeting, accounting, and financial analysis. So that's the highlight of the 9 position. Again, 7 that we're seeking additional approval for, 2 that were within the CEO's personnel authority that we're filling. Go to the next slide. Okay, so now on the reserve targets. So if you remember the stress test analysis, we did the stress test analysis. We look at, if you remember the whole program, we have an enterprise risk management framework. We look at all the risk drivers that can adversely affect the organization. Then we construct plausible, extreme but plausible scenarios that can have adverse impact on the organization. And biggest one is price volatility. As I mentioned to you in this revenue projections, if we were doing revenue projections in March, I had a forecast 140 million higher. You can see how quickly prices coming down can change that projection. Same thing can happen going forward. So the stress test basically modeled that one of the biggest financial risks we're facing is price coming down, increasing PCIA, lowering PG&E rates, and basically reducing our rates we can charge our customer. And then there's a regulatory risk of provider of last resort, where through that CPUC proceeding, they can tie up a significant amount of our capital or our liquidity. So if that stress scenario were to happen, as we discussed at the last board meeting, we want to basically be in a position that we can withstand the stress scenario and still be where we will have a large draw of reserves. But we want to be able to withstand it such that we're still left with 120 days of cash on hand for the next 2 fiscal years and 90 days looking at a 5-year planning horizon. So when we run the analysis, the stress test analysis basically said the target number should change from 285 days to 300 days. Now, initially, when we came up with this and we said, given the conservatism built into the forecast, we're okay if we stay with the current level of 285, and 285 and 300 is not that far off. But then what happened is we got a Moody's report. Moody's, as you know, we're glad to note that they increased our credit rating. And one of the biggest reasons they cited was a strong liquidity position. And they specifically mentioned the board action to increase our reserve targets to 285 days. And one of the factors they listed that can lead to future increase in credit rating is basically holding liquidity in excess of 300 days. So given that the stress test supports 300 days, we got this external data from Moody's of 300 days, we thought it'd be prudent to move our reserve target to 300 days. And that's what we were recommending. We're recommending staying with the minimum and maximum where it is right now, but changing the goal target from 285 to 300 days of cash on hand. Okay. In this slide, I'm showing you based on a 5-year forecast, which is attached in the appendix and also provided in the staff report, shows you how our reserve projections look like. We're looking to be in good financial position. We don't think we're going to hit the reserve target of 300 days, but again, there's a lot of uncertainty. You know, as prices move up and down, these numbers will go up and down. And that takes me to the last slide, which is the summary slide. Again, in summary, it's looking to be a positive year. There's a chance that it could be even better than what we're projecting, holding other things constant. Things can always change for better or worse, but it could be better. But the biggest uncertainty is basically the volatility in energy prices, and also where the CPUC, how the CPUC is going to adjust PCIA and what market price benchmark they're going to come out with for PCIA and RPS prices. So we're recommending we keep the current discount of 4% for remainder of this year. And from January through September of next year, we budget a 1% with an additional 1% for in dollar bill credits towards our low income customers. This is for setting the budget. We will come back to the board later in the year when there's more certainty on PCIA and PG&E rates, and then we can make final rate adjustments then. We're asking the board to consider increasing the target reserve to from 285 to 300 days of cash on hand. So basically revising our reserves policy with this update. And if you remember, one thing when we talked about the budget framework, we said it's prudent to basically start looking at basically a building for SVCE as opposed to continuing to lease. Staff is proposing that we continue with that effort. We're not asking that we set aside money for that, but we're going to continue our efforts. And by not doing so, that's not going to slow us down. If we find any attractive opportunities, we will come back to the board, but we don't have to make the decision of setting aside funding. We can do that later. But the effort is going to continue. We still have plenty of time on our current lease, which expires in September of 2025. And as I mentioned on the programs, we don't need to make any decision on additional funding for now. But as our budget improves and as our financial picture improves, we do want to, at that point, revisit setting aside additional funding, because we know down the road we will be needing those funds. But not making that decision now does not have any incremental impact on our programs initiatives at this point. That's the overview. I'm happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you, Amrit. That's quite an in-depth presentation. And you know, Andrea, I wonder if you could just keep his last slide up. I think because it has his bottom line sort of suggestions, and we'll all note that we're not voting on a budget. We're just taking input to see, and these are the proposals from staff right here in front of you on those. So with that being said, Director Lee, would you like to say something?
Thank you, Chair Tyson. Yeah, great report there. Thank you very much for the this big picture look. Nobody has a crystal ball of where the rate's going to be. I just want to make sure I understand what we're doing regarding the rates for our customers, which of course is what everybody cares about. We've been voting, we voted to provide this 4% discount to our customers, and the current plan is to keep it as 4%. I just want to be clear, when this says budget of 1% for the rest of fiscal year, it doesn't mean we will do 1%. It's just that on paper, we will use that 1% number, but we really would not know the actual rate until PG&E publishes its 2024 numbers, and that's really the most important number for us to know, because that determines our revenue, correct?
Yeah, so we're going to keep the 4% through end of the current year. So October through December, which will be in the new fiscal year, we're proposing let's keep the 4%. There's no reason to shock our customers with a rate change now, especially when we're having a good financial year this year. But for setting the budget for for the remainder of the fiscal year, which would be January 2024 through end of September 2024, let's budget the 1% for all customers and an additional 1% translated in dollar bill credits for low income customers. And that's about $870 a month on average if we were to spread it over 12 months. We're saying in September, approve the budget with those, but we will come back in later in the year, and we will actually make another recommendation. Either we'll say the picture is to stay with the 1%, or we'll say change it and we can do better. And we will come back basically with the information we will learn between now and then as to what PG&E's rates are likely to be starting January 2024. We'll have information at that point because PG&E will make an updated ERA filing, and we'll get indications as to what CPUC is likely to approve for PCIA and PG&E gen rates.
Right. So if, let's say, our expected numbers of being 1% is what actually happened, then in that sense, it's still not clear how that would affect individual customers, because if PG&E rates goes down, but then our discount also went down, right? Because it's squeezed both ways. So at the end of the day, the rates for the customer will probably be still fairly similar. Is that
the
correct?
rates will go down. If you look at even our projections we're making,
Right.
customer rates are going down. If if the projection holds as I presented it today, their rates will go down by 27% from what we're charging now. So the customer rates will go down.
Regardless.
Yeah.
So in that sense, if our discounted rate from PG&Es is only 1%, from the customer's point of view, even though it went from 4 to 1%, but the actual rate that they're paying actually went down. So
Will
I'm
go
just
down,
saying.
yes.
I think that's such an important point. And we focus very much on how we stand with respect to PG&E, but let's look at what the customers are paying. And
Exactly.
I think
Yes.
you've
Exactly.
narrowed that down to say,
Right.
if our discount is less in the context of much lower rates, I don't see the complaining. I don't
Yeah.
see the upswelling of reaction.
Right.
to
So
it.
even in our way of looking at things, oh, wow, we have a smaller discount. The reality, the customer will be paying less.
Very
So of
good
course, that's
point.
what they care. So that's the point I want to clarify. Thank you so much. Number one. And two is by increasing our goal of the reserve target from all the way to 300, certainly it would improve our credit rating. But I guess we're at the highest rating now, right? Since this, no, not yet. Okay. How far are we off?
Oh, there's millions. Oh, there really are.
We're at we have two credit ratings. We have S&P that rates us an A, which is about two notches, I believe, 2 notches higher than where Moody's is more conservative.
Ah,
This is even after they've upped us one. And we would like them to move further because the
Right.
rating affects
our rates.
our
Born rates.
our liquidity position in a
Mhm.
way, because if our ratings are higher, then the counterparties require less collateral.
Yep.
ISO requires less collateral, which improves our liquidity, and then our ability to transact with counterparties and get good offerings.
Exactly. Right. So because of that, by adding all the way to 300, this would potentially improve our rating. And
If
those,
we were able to actually build our liquidity to that level, but even changing this signals to the rating agencies that our board is, values liquidity, understands the risks, and has prudent risk management financial practices. That's one of the key criteria they look at.
great. And finally, you mentioned about the building fund, something that we've talked about planning. Someday we might consider buying our own buildings. As of now, we haven't really accrued any funds yet. We were planning, it's just planning at this point. There's nothing in that reserve or something like that, right?
There's nothing right now. We were initially thinking when we did the budget framework discussion of setting aside 20 million. We decided to take that out because optically it was not going to look good. I would have shown you a negative number, even though that's not an expend. I would have shown you a transfer from the operating budget to a building fund. But it really, we can delay that decision later. It's not going to slow us down in looking at initiatives. And when we're ready, we will come back to the board and say, and make that transfer the funds, or and obviously the board will actually have to explicitly approve the building purchase, obviously.
Right.
But we can set aside, if numbers change later in the year, we can do it at that point or even at a later point
Good.
in time.
And my final question is about the reserve funds that we're accruing, since our interest rate is keep creeping up to close to 5% of what I could get on CD these days. We are getting that type of numbers, I hope.
Yes, if you look at our treasurer report, you'll see a chart on investment, return on investment, that's very steep. And that's the reason. One is we changed our investment strategy. If you remember last October, the board approved new investment policy. By investing away from money market funds, we have improved our return on investment probably by 94% or so.
Great. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for those questions. Do we have any from this side? Director Chua?
Thank you, Chair. I just have one quick question. I think I missed it. Right. What is the reason why PG&E's rate is going down, I think tremendously, I think, from my point of view? Well, I think I missed, you must have covered it, but.
So if the market prices come down, we are projecting PG&E's rates. We don't know really. And we use modeling to basically calibrate to results we get out of them. And it shows our modelings are pretty close in predicting them based on the data, one snapshot of data we got in May when they made the error filing. So the reason their rates will come down, if market prices generally come down, their cost of buying electricity will come down. So that will come down. And then the PCI.
What would cost that?
I'm sorry.
What would cost that? What factor would cost that?
If
it
energy
will go
prices
down.
are lower, their cost of purchasing electricity will come down. So their generation rate will come down. That's one impact.
Could you be more specific and say
Yeah.
natural gas prices have been volatile and that's driving electric rates? Could you say that?
Yes, natural gas prices have been volatile. And overall energy prices have been coming down in the last few months for delivery of energy in 2024. So that's bringing the projection down.
The reason why I'm asking, Anish, because they will ask me, the residents will ask, oh, why is it going down? So I need to know the answer.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think I kind of got it. And thank you, Chair. Thank you.
And this
Thank
is
you
very
both.
volatile, energy prices. Right now, we're seeing prices coming down. Who knows? Something happened, just disruptive happened in the market, prices could go up between now and when rates are set. But the trend seems to be.
So I can say, I don't know.
There's a lot of uncertainty in energy prices. That's part of the reasons why we hold reserves.
Yeah.
Because we have to have size our reserve to withstand this type of volatility.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Go ahead, Director Srinivasan. Turn it on.
Can you hear me? Yeah. It's quick question on the PG&E. Didn't they go to a income-based rate change or something like that? How will that affect SVCE?
So that's a good question. They have not gone to it. This is a proposal that they've made to the CPUC based on a legislative mandate to look at income graduated rates. So this is something that will be playing out at the CPUC, whether they, and we don't know how it's going to get approved at this point. But right now we're hoping that this is on the transmission and distribution side of the business and not on the generation rate, so it doesn't impact us. But it's not settled yet as to how that would be implemented. But that's a proposal at this point and has not been ruled by the CPUC.
I don't see any here. And now with the slide up, I can't see if our directors who are remote, if they have, there we go. I don't see any hands there. Okay. All right, good. In that case, let's move to the public. Do we have any public comment on this presentation? I do not see any in the room and we don't have any online. All right. So Amrit, did you get what you were looking for in terms of feedback?
Yes.
Okay. All right. With that, thank you very much. And that concludes item number 4. Thank you. We'll now move on to board member announcements and directions on future agenda items. Do we have any announcements? Director Meadows.
I want to announce that today Los Altos and SVCE had a joint press release about our thank you for the grant. Do I thank myself as a director? Mayor says, thank you, Director Meadows, and Director Meadows says, thank you, Mayor. Anyway, sorry, I'm just confused this evening. So the press release talks about the grant for the cool pavement pilot. And so we're going to start that downtown, a block on State Street next week. And we'll probably have some other locations that get it as well, but this is a community resilience grant, I believe, if I have the wording correct. And so it'll be very exciting. I expect lots of people milling about in the street to see if they feel cooler.
Okay.
So thank you for that.
All right. Thank you for that comment. Do we have any other announcements? I don't see any here. I don't see in the, oh, there we got a hand raised. Go ahead, Director Rennie.
Thank you, Chair. It related to our mission of reducing greenhouse gases. The Fire Safe Council, whose job is to try to make areas safer from fires, which emit a lot of greenhouse gases when they get out of control. Just wanted to mention that the Fire Safe Council is having a fundraising event on October 10th, and it's going to be at the Mountain Winery. Planning still kind of in progress, but hoping everybody would think about suggesting to their residents to attend the fundraiser to help support the Fire Safe Council, which is aligned with our mission of reducing greenhouse gases.
Great, thank you, Director Rennie. In another capacity, I work with them quite a bit, and they are a nonprofit. Any other announcements? I do not see any. With that, we are going to ask now, do we have any public comment on an upcoming closed session, which we're about to change to? I do not see any public comment in the room, and we don't have any online. With that, now we will adjourn to closed session. Thank you.
All in there.
We're about to reconvene from closed session. Thank you for your patience. I don't know, do you turn on the recording again?
We are still recording.
Okay. All right, thank you, everybody. We're returning now from closed session, and we have no actions to report from closed session. With that, I hereby adjourn our meeting. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.